Hello there, kia ora. So, the Coalition have finally started the ball rolling on their plans to shake up local government. And what a mess. You see, local government is absolutely in need of reform. People have been crying out for it for years, and that was part of the reason the last government commissioned the Future for Local Government report, which did suggest some changes to ways that local councils connected and operated. But nothing quite like the proposal being floated, and it is just a proposal at this stage, and it seems like it's not a particularly well thought out one. But there's a lot of moving parts here that don't seem to have been taken on board, and it seems to confirm that the coalition see local government as a hindrance when they don't do what the coalition want. It's why Shane Jones threatened their existence over a regional council's ability to stand in the way of his fast track approvals bill. Like iwi, regional councils are an organisation that can slow down or stop local environments being ransacked by corporations, known to dish out large seafood dinners to any hypothetical MP who wants them, no questions asked. And all of that leads to contradictions and problems, like how we were forced to have that more than $2 million costing Māori ward referendum in October, where it turned out more New Zealanders voted to retain the wards than disestablish them because it was important for locals to decide local representation. Reshaping local government the way that's being proposed removes that ability for local representation models to be decided by locals, which was apparently really important. And of course, that all came about in part because of how important it was to the coalition that was making dog whistle racist comments about Three Waters. They wanted to keep the water decisions local. I saw my own MP, Dan Boudoir, do that myself at a candidate event last election. The claim it was about making things local and the dog whistle comments with a literal wink and nudge to a braying audience. But it's not important to let voters choose how their environment is looked after now? And of course, if there's any doubt that racism had any part to play in this call on local government, well, ACT's official reaction to today's news was to gloat that it had finally got rid of Māori representation on ECAN, one of the regional councils, as promised. For context, Ngāi Tahu felt the best way to ensure decisions made on their whenua were made by mana whenua was through a legislatively protected placement on ECAN that ensured a consistent Ngāi Tahu voice at the decision-making table, a role that they actually had during the time that commissioners were in place for ECAN, and was part of creating equitable outcomes and partnership as promised under the treaty. And those roles were advertised and awarded to environmental experts to represent the iwi around a table. And this change will mean that there's no dedicated voices specifically at the table to represent any tangata whenua views. But one possible model does include a combination of mayors and government appointments. Appointments put there to specifically move the government's agenda. So co-governance, which is bad unless it doesn't involve Māori apparently. Then there's the other issues around representation in the proposed model. A board made up of regions' mayors means a voter in Christchurch, for example, with a larger population base has less say than a voter in Selwyn. Okay, maybe not the best example considering what the voters in Selwyn actually chose to do at the local election, but the principle is still the same. And none of the mayors elected were elected to represent the areas on the topics covered by regional councils, and most of them are already full-time positions. Adding to this is unfair on them and to voters. There's questions being raised about how telling people elected just 6 weeks ago that their positions may be gone before the next election impacts democratic processes and government overreach to once again undermine decisions of voters directly. One mayor I spoke to called it frankly disrespectful to people who poured in hard work, money, and time to try and get elected for their communities. And to use the line about having lost social license to do their role, that's pretty rich from a coalition with the worst first-term poll results that we've ever seen in a government. There's issues around changes local authorities are currently in the process of implementing, most of them under direction of legislation, like Waikato's Plan Change 1, which impacts the entire Waikato region and has taken years to navigate. A rushed change in organisation puts that at risk. And that was set up by a treaty settlement, so it can't be reversed by law and adds to the risk of government breaching Te Tiriti obligations. And there's issues around ownership. In the Bay of Plenty, Western Bay of Plenty councillor Margaret Murray Benge, Don Brash's partner, has publicly advocated for the dissolution of the Bay of Plenty Regional Council so that they could claim the regional council's shares in the port of Tauranga. and the income that earns. And that would leave the decisions on that port somewhat in the hands of someone connected to a group already known for whipping up racist foment around the foreshore and seabed. There's concerns that the mandate of these boards to look at amalgamation and shed efficiencies is a directive to force amalgamation on councils, some of which are open to the idea, some of which aren't. But either way, forcing it again goes against that claim of local decisions on representation mattering. Oh, and to add to all the mess, the government will in the next couple of weeks announce plans for a forced rates cap on councils, a step which will force local authorities to cut services and maintenance on infrastructure because, despite the claims of rabid right-wing local politicians, councils already spend more than 90% of their budgets on infrastructure and essential operating costs, and those are rising thanks to industry-specific inflation costs internationally and faster than CPI growth in those areas. And it's always been that way. So this announcement of a proposal on the future of local government, it's a mess. It's being released at a time when they expect low engagement because of the holidays, burying it in the machinery of government. It reads like a rushed ploy to draw attention away from talks of leadership spills, losing arguments on capital gains tax, and laser focus on the cost of living that's clearly being ignored going into an election year. And a consultation process seems like a nice exercise, but we've seen with the coalition, like we did with the Māori ward referendum or the RSB, it'll push through no matter the actual results if it feels it can get what it wants out of the changes, which seems to add up to less roadblocks in their way to sell off chunks of the country, less environmental protections in the way of their ongoing mission to undercut our climate change policies, and less say from voters in how their communities and places that they call home are shaped going forward. Hey, thanks for sticking around till the end of the video. While you're here, why not hit that like button or share the video or even subscribe to the channel. You could even become a paid YouTube member so you can see things released in advance, you get access to some exclusive content, and like all these awesome people, you get to have your name at the end of the credits as well.